We're with Mark Graham, Eastern Connecticut men's head lacrosse coach. Eastern getting ready for its season opener on February 29th at Gordon. Mark, second year at Eastern as head coach after a number of years at Vassar. Think back a year ago. Are things a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more of an idea of what is going on here than you did a year ago?
I think so. I think we've really made some great strides in the program. On the field, we still have some things to work through, but I definitely think in the culture and expectations and all of those things, we've certainly made some big strides. Our guys know what the commitment is, what it entails, and are willing to put in the time and the effort to improve, not just on the field, but in the classroom and here on the campus community. So.
Can you say last year, when you got things going, you ran into problems in terms of bodies and injuries. Did you think that, wow, when you first started last year, what did I get myself into? This is a little bit more difficult than maybe I thought the process would be?
Well, I did expect a little bit more, based on the roster from the year before. I thought we were going to have a few more guys, and then some guys just decided they didn't want to do it, which was okay because sometimes, if they're not willing to make the commitment and what it takes, then you're better off, for them to make that decision for themselves. But as low we were on numbers, I started a lot lower when I started at Vassar. We had about 17 guys on the team my first year at Vassar, and we were playing in the Liberty League with, RIT and RPI and Skidmore, and St. Lawrence and Union, and 3 or 4 top 10 teams in our conference. And so, the numbers part I don't think is important. I think it's important to build the foundation of the program. We've actually improved our strength of schedule this year, and I think that we're moving in the right direction as a group.
Well, you have 31 players on your roster right now, and already 21 of them are either freshmen or sophomores, which means they're basically your guys already, more than half of the team.
Yeah, pretty much. The 4, last year we only had 4 freshmen. They were recruited before I got here. Devin Callahan had done a great job of continuing some relationships throughout that summer to keep some guys alive. And so while we were a little bit low as a class, all 4 of those guys are guys who contribute for us and were good quality recruits. And then, 17 freshmen are all guys that we brought in this year, and a really talented group, although the inexperience will show at times. Our athleticism, skill, and I think commitment to doing the right things is really going to come across as well.
When you recruited for many years at Vassar, and now last couple of years you've been recruiting at Eastern, the kids that you're going after now, are they very different kinds of kids than you would go after at Vassar?
The funny thing is the kids are not any different. The qualities that I look for in a kid doesn't really have to do necessarily with their academic status. The biggest difference is the timeline. At Vassar, we had a January 1st deadline for applications, and so if you didn't have your application in by January 1st of your junior year, you did not have an opportunity to apply, or I'm sorry, of your senior year.
In high school?
Yeah. To even apply to school. And now I'm still talking to a number of seniors in the class, right now that are still trying to make up their mind as far as what school they want to go to. And having open enrollment really does help because it allows the kids who are not really sure at that point to, make a good decision and not rush and get pushed into a decision. The other thing is that we've benefited from a couple of transfers, and we will continue to search that avenue, whereas at Vassar, the retention rate was over 95%. So the transfers, it wasn't even necessarily whether a kid was academically eligible or not, but there was no beds. If kids don't leave, there's no place to put a transfer, And so so it was really, 0 transfers, at that type of a situation. So those 2 things are probably the biggest difference, the timeline being, it makes me a little anxious that at this point we're not done with our class. But every day I hear from another kid who's just finishing his basketball season or his hockey season, and because he played a fall and a winter sport, is not that far ahead with his, college options, hasn't made visits and stuff. And so, the good thing is that we still can continue to provide some opportunities for some very talented kids.
When you were recruiting this past year, in general, what kind of reception were you getting from prospective student athletes in terms of, did they know the program? When you said Eastern Connecticut, did they have an idea of what the program was about already, or no?
Well, I start really with coaches because, being from Connecticut, I knew a lot of the coaches. And to be honest, not too many of them were, strongly familiar with what was going on here. They didn't feel a strong connection with the program prior. And so that was a big part of it, is really getting the coaches on board, because then, as soon as you talk to a kid, he's going to go to his coach in many situations. And so, and they want to know what their thought is of that type of thing. And as a kid, you want to know what your coach thinks your capability of, is to play at what level and what schools might match what your capability of. So really started out at that point working with the coaches, club coaches, high school coaches, and making those connections. And to be honest with you, being able to provide them what the great opportunities we have here. The facilities have changed dramatically since the last time I was here, and it really blew me away when I came for my visit. And so I know that once we can get kids on campus, it really makes a difference, as they're walking around with their parents. And, many of their parents from Connecticut picture, Eastern as what it was in the 80s and, 90s. And it was, it was more of a community college, type of a feel than, really a destination university. And so I think once we get kids on campus, that's really been our focus, is even though when we talk to kids and they're not sure, we just say, come to campus, come take a look, come see what we have to offer academically and facilities-wise, and then we can talk about, where we're going as a program.
I'm sure you get a lot of kids on campus and they'll say to you, I had no idea.
No, absolutely.
Like this.
I mean, and really for the kids, they get their information from their parents. And so when they first think about Eastern, and, when I was coming out of high school in 1987, Eastern wasn't a destination college. It was more of a place that you went if you were in state and you didn't have a lot of options or you didn't have a lot of money. And, and fairness, that was what it was looked upon at that time. And so when their kids maybe see me or my assistant at a recruiting event, or they get the email, because we get out on the road and we go everywhere and we email every good player that we see, if they go to their parents and say, well, I got to think from Eastern, if their first image of Eastern is, all two-story buildings on this very small play of land, and then it's tough for them to encourage Eastern as an option. So really transforming that mindset, and as we start to get quality kids from a variety of high school programs around, then now those kids at those high schools have that connection, and they get to talk to someone and say, oh yeah, look, this guy went there and look how well he's doing. And they get to make those, conversations and talk about what a great opportunity that we have. And, so really it has been a work in progress, but I think the more that we just got to keep getting out on the road and making those connections and making those phone calls and trying to get guys on campus. And, guys that come here and then go home and then they talk to their friends and they say, man, it's really nice at Eastern. It's a lot more than what I expect. And, that's really been a big focus of ours. And I think that we're starting to get through to more and more kids.
Well, following up on that, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about, because you have Jack Lombardo, freshman last year, and now is joined by one of his former high school teammates, Dominic Scarano. You got a couple of kids from Summers, and then you've got you had Evan Mao last year as a freshman from Longmeadow. Now his former teammate Ryan Stocks is here. Is that sort of like the word of mouth kind of thing?
Sure. I mean, that's always the hope, is you get one guy here, especially from, so Longmeadow's a program I've been familiar with for a long time, perennial, Western Massachusetts champions,
Absolutely.
Talented players. And so, I was lucky that Evan was one of the guys that Coach Callahan had been able to cultivate and continue in the process. But then because he was here, and I went out and saw some Longmeadow games, and we contacted Ryan Stocks, and I was really impressed by him as a young man and a player. And he's come and he's got an opportunity to make an instant impact here. Summers High School is one I'm very familiar with. I've known Ken McCarthy for 25 plus years. After coaching at South Windsor for so many years, we had a great rivalry with Summers. And I've recruited Summers kids for many years. We just didn't have the opportunity to get any at Vassar, and now I do have the opportunity to get some of those guys. And we have 2 freshmen now, and we've got a couple more guys in the mix for next year, and hopefully that'll be a place that we can get a guy or 2 every year. I know it's a talented program. Berlin is a funny one because they didn't have lacrosse when I was coaching, and so I wasn't really sure what to expect. But Jack was a guy who was on board here, and when he came in, he was a very talented kid, very athletic, and not only that, very respectful, hardworking, and all of those things, really resonate, because normally when you get a kid who's like that, he's coming out of a program where they're coached well.
Yeah.
They have an expectation that they know how to live up to. Berlin is a really blue-collar town, not too dissimilar from Windsor, where I grew up. And so I went out and watched some games, and, TJ Ebert and Dominic Scarano, two very talented kids who decided they wanted to come here, and they're going to make instant impact. So they're going to play a lot as freshmen. So it's funny to me when I think that I have three Berlin high school kids, who are freshmen and sophomores, and are really three of our better guys. And so Coach Rossi at Berlin is an Eastern graduate. He's an alum. And so, he is great about talking about maybe where the school was and where they are now. And obviously he's got three guys in the program that are doing very well. And so hopefully that's a place that will continue to get guys every year. So that does happen quite a bit. We've got a couple guys in the mix from different central Connecticut schools, Cheshire and Southington and Glastonbury and Newington. And so I know that as we start to get those guys more, word of mouth through the club teams, a kid makes a commitment and he's talking about Eastern, at his summer club events, and pretty soon the other kids are like, oh, Eastern could be a good opportunity. So it's just about making those, building a lot of bridges right now, and then trying to get those guys to come across. So.
It's very time consuming.
Yeah.
Did last year, and maybe it's ongoing now, was your number one primary thing last year was just to develop your philosophy with these kids and explain the way things are going to be done?
Well, I think it was twofold too, because I know that there is an expectation here. We've got some amazing alumni who are tremendously supportive of this program, and so, but they have an expectation that the program is going to be competitive, and so you do want to win, but at the same time, it was important that we built a strong foundation base, working on our team culture, working on our academic success. Last semester we broke over a 3.0 as a team for GPA, and I know that is a pretty good leap from where it was when I came in, my first year. And so those are all different things, expectation-wise, the lifting team, guys getting in there consistently, making progress and doing a good job, doing more things together as a team creates that camaraderie that, really then resonates when you get into the locker room and then carries out onto the field. So I think a lot of that is very important to me, and has started to really pay off. And so, but at the same time, we want to win, and so we're working hard to, Coach Callahan and I just, we're very fortunate to have Ian Beeling, who's a junior student here and a student assistant, and a really great kid from Cheshire High School, where, I went to college with his high school coach. And so, he really helps out, because only having a two-man staff makes it difficult. But to have one more guy who he helps to run the face-off guys in practice, he helps to work with the defensive guys so that I can go down and work with, Devin on the offensive side. He runs the box on game day. He's a certified official, so he knows all of the rules and the stick measurements, and and so that really helps us to have a certified official on staff. Kids, any questions about rules or stick depth or width or any of that stuff, he's right on board with all of his equipment right there to help us be prepared for those things as well. So, just trying to make the most of our resources. Ian was a guy who was on the team here, had some injury issues, but really just wanted to stay involved, and we're happy to have him. So, trying to put all of those pieces together, and, I've just always been do the most with what you have, not worry about what we don't have. And the recruiting part will start to build the rest of what we don't have as we move.
Well, you guys were 4-4 last year in the conference, and you ranked 6th in the preseason poll. And a couple of your conference losses were very close, one in overtime, so you could have been 6-2. Can you be disappointed with going 500 your first year with everything else you had going on?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we look back to a game or two that we felt that we could have won, but at the same time, we won a game in overtime, and
right.
And we won another tight game. Knocked off number 2 Plymouth State here at home on Senior Day, which was really exciting for the guys. And so we won a few that could have certainly gone the other way, and we lost 1 or 2 that could have gone the other way. So could have been 6-2. I don't think we could have been 2-6, but I guess we were not that far away from being that either. So. And that's what I think we learned a lot about how to find a way to win those close, tight games. And, we learned early on in Castleton, we had a nice lead and it got chipped away from us and I think the guys really carried that with them. So the next couple times we got into a tight game, they remembered that feeling and they found a way to finish the game as opposed to letting it get away from them. And anytime you have a really young team, a lesson like that guys can learn at an early age can really pay off for you over the course of time. And now, I have sophomores who are veterans, and they remember that. And so, in any program, your connections are, from class to next class a little bit stronger than maybe senior to freshman, although I feel like we have a pretty close team. So, it's those sophomores that are really kind of passing on that sense down to the younger guys. And when you have 17 freshmen, it's more than 50% of our roster, so they're a pretty significant group. So if them learning things the right way, knowing what our expectation is, holding each other accountable and holding themselves accountable, that's just the way that we do things. And then next year when we bring in a class, now you've got 17, really 21 guys that are right there connected to them, that are showing them the things that are expectation. And so I think that's how a program builds, and that does take a little bit of time. And I am impatient at times, but I do understand, having been through it before. It took me about 5 years to, be successful at Vassar College, and not sure if it's going to take 5 here. Maybe we can push that a little bit up, but I'm just going to keep doing it the right way. I think that's the important if you're looking for long-term success, not instant success.
So the Eastern Connecticut men's lacrosse team is going to be opening up on February 29th. They're going to be at Gordon College. Eastern will open this Little East season on March 21st, hosting Castleton University. Marc, thanks for being here. Good luck this year.
All right. Thanks, Bob.